Hi there. Thank you for joining us on today's discussion with strategic franchising. We're going to dive into the ins and outs of becoming a franchise owner. For some of you, you've looked at owning a brand in the past. For some of you, you are looking into franchising for the first time. I'm looking forward to guiding you through a conversation with two of the executives from Strategic Franchising. I'm Nick Powles, publisher of 1851franchise.com. You can visit 1851 Franchising to learn more about how to succeed at franchising. So let me welcome in Sean and Chris. Guys, thanks so much for spending some time with us today. What I would love is to hear your guys' stories as it relates to franchising, what positions you to be an expert in franchising so that our audience understands your guys' backstory. Chris, I'll start with you and then I'll go over to you, Sean. So Chris, what's your franchise story?
My franchise story is one of those journeys that you just take and you end up in a place you never thought you were going to be. But about 22 years ago, I was in the middle of a career change and was looking at different opportunities. I got invited to a small startup out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. They were looking for a business coach to work with 30, 35 franchise owners to be more successful and more profitable in their business as they were kind of trying to develop systems and processes and tools for this system. And kind of took a job actually with a kind of a look at it that I was really only going to do it for, a year to 2 years. And then I was going to go back into my real career. And 22 years later, here I am still in franchising because ultimately I fell in love with what franchising really does and what it offers the people an opportunity to enter into business ownership for themselves and to see that kind of success in their families and their communities. It's just been the most rewarding career I'd ever got involved in. So I continue to develop and grow, and now I'm the president of strategic franchising in R5 brands. So That's a little bit of my story.
Thanks, Chris. Lots to continue to break in there. Sean, what's your franchise story?
So when I was in college, I actually started a business. So I know what it's like to start a business from scratch, and grew that business and eventually franchised it. And I've been franchising ever since in multiple different size companies to large companies, primarily in a development role. I'm now president of True Blue. But the one thing I'd say that being in the franchising industry is that the appreciation for the value of being a part of franchise system, starting your business on your own from scratch is really hard. And I only did it once. I'd never want to do it again. And that's where I learned the value of a franchise system, because you're taking a system that works and then you merge it with an owner, a local owner, and it's a really winning formula. And been excited to be a part of it my whole career.
Chris, I want to break into a few things that you said in your opening introduction, but I fall into franchise support. I'm brought on to help make these franchisees successful. So you got to see the inside of what is it like for a franchisee that's already signed on, open, invested their life savings into a business. And here you're there to help them figure out how am I going to navigate this thing? Go all the way to the position you're in now. Now you're seeing them all the way from the starting point of raising their hand and saying, I'm interested in franchising, to going through the discovery process, to signing, to opening, to scaling. What have you learned about who the right candidate is for franchising? Is there a right person? And so if I'm a candidate that's sitting on the edge and wondering if this should be for me, what would you advise them on what they're going to need from a skill set standpoint to both be successful at it and to scale at franchising?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Nick, because you kind of look at, who's our successful franchisees that I've encountered in my past, and, what have been the commonalities? And, you look at a lot of different things, and people always want to identify, say there's a specific personality trait that allows you to be successful. Are you outgoing? Are you a great salesperson? Do you have in this intricate background? And it really, what it is it's, the consistently successful people, one, are capable of following a system. And the secondary is persistence, and someone who's got an eternal drive to succeed and isn't willing to accept barriers and roadblocks in their way. And they're going to figure out solutions both for their company and for themselves in order to overcome those hurdles. Because the one thing about small business ownership, and franchising specifically, if you're the type of person who gets overwhelmed by obstacles and you just stop and you don't make changes and you don't make decisions at that point, that's where you're going to start to struggle a little bit in this type of system. we can help you a lot with those decisions, but at the end of the day, you're the one who's actually out there implementing them. So it's just somebody who has that drive to kind of succeed that really matters. It doesn't necessarily matter if you're an outgoing person or an introvert. You can hire for your weaknesses and really supplement your strengths. So that's what a franchise system is really good about, helping you define, but you still got to go out and do it every day, and you got to have that drive.
Glad you answered that by saying you have to have a willingness to follow the system. So when you fall into franchising, you have these 35 franchisees. Is that the difference between those who were succeeding and those who are saying, "Hey, Chris, I'm struggling"? Was that one of the big things? Were there any other insights between the strugglers and the successful ones?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of went out right out. I think everybody wants to come into a system and they want to put their own stamp on it. And the one thing I always encourage people, you get into this for your first year, you should be putting your stamp on the individual client relationships, your networking partners, really putting your personality into the belief of the system, the belief in the service that you're going to provide in the community. But if you're trying to figure out a better way to price or a better way to deliver the services, and you don't like the way that we have done it already in the past, well, the reason we've done that is because we've been working with franchisees in the field. We've gathered those best practices together, and we've put this system together in place for you to follow. And you can avoid a lot of the mistakes that small business owners originate with if you just follow that. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily, make sense to you because you can't see all the connecting dots yet because you just got into this. We've already connected the dots for you. We'll follow you along. And the longer your business is open, then you can make some of the more of the tweaks and changes, but you'll see the core fundamentals, how critical they are to really building a successful business. And we've defined those for you. And that really saves you so much time, energy, and grief if you're just willing to go along with it.
Sean, I want to go backwards in the sales process. Obviously, some of the advice that Chris is giving is when you're evaluating, you're at the finish line, you're evaluating whether franchising makes sense for you, and then how are you going to be successful as a franchise owner. But if we go backwards, I literally just got off another discussion talking with a franchise owner who was in the funnel for 15 years. And I said, what's your regret? And she goes, I should have done it sooner. She goes, I kept on letting fear be the thing that prevented me from moving forward. Talk about some of the things that you would advise a candidate that has raised their hand, said franchising makes sense for me. I don't know what type of brand I want to look at, but I continuously just sits on the sidelines and doesn't pull the trigger. Like what would you tell them to help get them over that hurdle or over that fear?
I think, it's probably most candidates go through this. And my advice to them would be, go for your dream. Like if you know you want to own your own business and you want to go for it, it's not going to be handed to you. So you got to take that step. And then it's overcoming your fears and the fear of, not succeeding. And, really looking at it as like, are you going to die if you start a business and it doesn't work out the way you think? And the answer for most people is no. And so it's really, look at what your dream is and what you want to do. Now, deciding what franchise is right for you, my advice is that find a brand that you can be passionate about operating. I think the biggest misconception that people have about when they look at franchises is like, I want to look at something that I like. And at the end of the day, you got to like the business, not just the product. And, one of my stops in my career was in the wireless industry where we sold cell phones, and people would say, I want to do that brand because I love cell phones. So it's like, well, you're not going to be playing with cell phones all day. You're going to be selling them, and you better be able to love selling cell phones and running a business. So don't disregard a brand or a concept because the service is not cool to you. It is matching your skill sets to a brand that you can be successful in and a passion to win, because that's what it's all about in business. The successful owners have this passion to win. It's like Chris was talking about, a drive, and it really comes down to winning and putting yourself in a position where you feel that you can win. And if you have that drive and you have that passion to win, you're going to be successful in a franchise system, because a franchise system is a collection of best practices. Chris was talking about the training and the support and everything else. We're not sitting here inventing new things. We are taking things that are working in a franchise system. Our franchisees are doing these things and they're successful. And that's what our system is on. So it's tested. All we need is good owners to execute. And that is, if you're looking at a franchise concept, and why it's so important to follow the system is because these are proven systems. And so executing on, and Chris's point is great, is like going in and trying to fix that. Why would you? These are the best practices that our owners are successfully doing. Just emulate it and repeat it, and then take it to the next level.
All right, so I love the point of be passionate about the business model, and I want to say a comment, then I want your feedback on it. What's interesting about that comment is most that are advising someone to get into franchising say be passionate about the product. So you love burgers, you're buying a burger brand because you love burgers. And what you're saying is, well, wait a second, glad that you love burgers, but you better love operations, or you better love supply chain management, or you better be comfortable with high labor turnover because in your previous career you did the exact same thing. So what you're saying is align it back to what your career or what your personality would better align you with, because then get to the check mark of do you believe in the product. And I would imagine like that's sound advice for people that are also choosing to go through a broker network, because a broker network almost qualifies you based on how much money you have. So I have, $150,000 to invest. What do I buy? And they say you'd be perfect for this brand. So they're leading you towards something that is financially passionate, like they're aligned with your passion that got you to the finances, not necessarily the business model. So any more comments on that? Because I think it's a really good point for anybody that's looking at this is be passionate about the business model first.
Yeah, again, it's lining up your strengths and where you feel that you would be in a better opportunity to be successful and win. And again, I think, like I said, just like my cell phone example, is like the cell phones are widgets, they're part numbers, they're SKU numbers. And so, but the owners that were successful love building a team, love managing. And the same thing with True Blue is that I think we have a really great product offering to customers and that you can be passionate about, and our purpose is great, but you got to be passionate about building teams and winning at the business. And that is what it takes to be really successful. So again, I think it's just like, where do you fit in as far as your skill sets and where you think you could position yourself to be successful. And I think people confuse their like passion for a product because they like it. They think the consumer is going to like it. But again, you're going to be living it day by day, and it's being successful in operating a business that may do those services.
Chris, when you're meeting a candidate, do you want them thinking scale on day one? Do you want them coming more financially sound than the type of business that they're buying into, so that one, they don't feel tremendously stressed of keeping their own lights on, but two, they're thinking about scale? Like, is that important to you as a franchisor?
Well, I think you got to look at different categories. In our particular category, the scaling component is really secondary. It's really getting in here and creating a successful business. So when you go through our entire process, by the time you roll out after about 6 weeks, you're going to leave training week with a business plan that's going to lay out your next 2 years based on your goals and objectives. And you kind of, when we're looking at you, we want you to focus on getting that business up and running successfully, and then you scale in conjunction with that on top of that. So the ability to come in here and look, and it says, hey, do you want to do 5? You want to do 6? We always want to get people to focus in on, we want to be one, we want to be the best, because we really align these businesses so you have a territory size and a capacity ability to generate the income and revenue that your goals already lined up for you. Your additional expansion and growth beyond that is really a building on top of what we have already in place. So we really do focus more in on that first unit and that first situation, and take your 2-year plan based on that. And then where do you want to go from there? We'll build it with you.
Chris, furthering Sean's statement and tying it back to yours, you're saying, one, let's make you super successful at this first unit. But then the reality is with the multiple brands under the portfolio, you're also determining how do we make you successful at one unit based on data across all 5 brands. Like, all of the brands get together at certain points and say, here's the best practices. I would imagine that turns into an advantage operationally, that if I were to buy into one of the brands and you're like, we're going to make Nick successful, you're able to lean on the knowledge base of 5 different brands, 5 different customer types, and 5 different franchise owners that are getting in there to help make me successful. Is that a part of the strategic advantage that you get to tap into intelligence across multiple brands?
Well, 100%. I mean, if you look at one of the things we talk about at strategic is, what's the force multiplier of joining this? Because if you join a system that's just launching out and they got 30 to 60 franchises, they can only have so much staff and so many resources available to that franchise support system. What we do is we bring in support. We were able to reduce the overhead for brands, say like a True Blue. We're able to reduce that overhead by having all these different shared services and, IT, accounting, legal departments, all that kind of stuff. So that opens more resources up to go directly to the franchisee. And then the other thing that we do as an organization, we're very strong about how do we meet. So we have our leadership team meets monthly to discuss what's going on in the brands, what are the best practices. Our marketing teams meet across brands to be able to share best practices and information and technology that we've learned. And it goes on like this. And so you go even to, we also offer, say, like the Growth Coach, which is our business coaching concept, which coaches at a much higher level than we do at our big brand level. And then every single strategic franchisee gets offered Strategic Start program, which is 6 months of business coaching. That's all part of your program to get your business up and running in that first year. So those are how we try to really synergize across all 5 brands, knowledge, information, and skills.
Sean, when you think about the growth of strategic and who's come into the system over the last year, what excites you about the quality of franchisees? What are you hearing from them from a feedback standpoint now that they're in it? Because obviously once someone says yes, now they got to go to work, right? So what's the feedback been from the franchisees who've joined the system?
We've had Chris's point to the scalability and the fact that because True Blue is basically considered an emerging brand, but because we're coupled with strategic franchising and other brands, and we can utilize those shared resources, that's given us an opportunity to hire specific support personnel in key areas that you just wouldn't see in a brand our size. So we have very great specialists in all categories of the business, particularly True Blue. Whereas if we didn't have this shared resource, we would have to have an accounting firm and team for that type of stuff that is important for operating a business, but may not be to the franchisee. And because of that, we've really evolved our brand on our processes far faster than we could have any other way. And our franchisees have seen it and seen how fast we've moved and improved all of our systems, whether it's anywhere from processes to technology to vendors and marketing, all those things have just moved light years in the last 2 years. And our franchisees would say that.
So what about the due diligence process? So for candidates that are thinking about this, and we have probably 2 groups that would watch a video like this either today or down the line. One is going to be the folks that are in the process of looking at one of your brands or another brand and are looking for advice on how to win at franchising. Another category are going to be those that are continuously sitting on the sideline that are waiting for the moment to get over that, get over the hump and say, yes, now it's time to actually buy into this. What kind of advice would you have for people that need to go do due diligence to get comfortable with the idea of buying? How would you advise them to do their diligence on your guys' brands as well? Sean, if you want to go first and Chris second.
Yeah, I think it's pretty standard for all is that, obviously talk to franchisees and that's the best way to do the due diligence. And understand, we're going to talk about how we're positioned and how it all comes together, but speaking to franchisees is going to give you great insight to that. And for those people who are sitting on the fence and waiting for that right time, I always kind of joke around like divine intervention. It's going to come from within. There is not going to be a sign from outside. There's not going to be some moment the economy is great or the economy is bad. It's like there's always a reason not to, and you can find it if you're looking for it. But the people who just do it and just if you have it in here that you want to do this, then do it, because I just think you're going to regret, later in life that you didn't. Like you were talking about the person who waited 15 years. If that person would have finally gotten over their fears and done it, can you imagine what their business would look like 15 years later? Because I mean, we're in the service. A lot of our brands are service related, home service related, and it just organically grows and scales. And so now you're taking a business that's been operating for 15 years. What a missed opportunity and time to do that. I'm glad they finally did. But that's the thing is like, the time is, you're going to find it in here, and it's not going to be, it's an emotional decision, and go with it. And then in your heart, you'll know if you want to do it. In your heart, you'll know, you're going to be concerned. You're going to have fears. That's human nature. Don't look at fears and concerns as a red flag, like, oh, there's something not right, because that's human nature. But look at the big picture, picture yourself doing this. And if you can see it yourself doing this, and you're talking to owners is like, yeah, they're like me, I can see myself doing this, that should be your trigger. And don't look for anything external, because you're going to find reasons not to, and you're just going to kick that can down the road or never do it. And I'm telling you, there's being somebody who owned their own business. Yeah, there's the reward of the financial piece, but the bigger piece and the bigger reward is being a business owner. There's something about it. And there's something that you get excited about getting up in the morning when you own your own business. And so I love it. I love seeing people do it. I love having the franchisees experience that. And if you're sitting on the sidelines and playing it safe, you'll never experience it. So, go for it. It's what my advice to them would be.
Chris, additional feedback?
Yeah, I think that's, Sean's hit most of the key points but every system that's healthy and that you should look at will put you through a really good data driven due diligence process. You're going to see the results. You're going to talk to franchise owners. You're going to be able to put together a lot of data. The thing I always like to talk to people about is you can keep searching for data for the rest of your life, and it still will not give you the answer yes or no. Sean mentioned it, the answer comes internally. You have to gather data. So I always tell people, when you're going through this process, when you're looking at a specific brand, take yourself into the future. When would you actually like a business to open, whether it's this business or another one? And then work backwards from there and put timelines in place to make the decision yes or no. And then understand that you will never have enough data, because you don't get to see the future. You don't get to know what's going to happen tomorrow. And you have to make decisions based on the data that's available. And it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be all the data, because it all matters what you do with the information and systems once you get it. You have to make decisions. And so put timelines in place, make decisions, yes or no, on this particular concept or whatever it is. And if you feel like the system that you're talking to isn't giving you enough data, or they're not allowing you a really strong due diligence process, well, then compare them with another system in another organization to see how they do the system. And is that going to really work to give you the information you need? And then finally, I heard a great Japanese proverb yesterday. And it was basically, the simple thing is, when's the best time to plant a tree? And the answer is 20 years ago. What's the second best time to plant a tree? And that's today. So it doesn't matter you took 15 years to make up your mind. What are you going to do today? Because that's all we can impact and make a change on.
It's a fantastic point. So even when you're just talking, I thought of something that I think is important to call out. And let me frame it this way. And Chris, you can start with any comments or feedback on this. I helped a friend recently explore a franchise opportunity. Financially, it seemed fantastic. Like the dollars looked great. And when we started looking underneath the covers, what was very fascinating was the support model wasn't as strong as it should be. It's kind of like you're open and here you go. There was no marketing, no tech, no digital, no real infrastructure from a supply chain management. And what was interesting, when I went through all of those things, I said, but the franchisor is coming out and saying that they have all this. And so as a part of due diligence, I said, this is where my advice to him was always start at no and turn into a yes. So maybe from a question standpoint, what things drive you nuts that other franchisors say, this is what you get when you buy in, that a prospect better double check to make sure that it's actually true?
Well, that's that's a long conversation, Nick, because every franchisor says they give the exact same things. We've all seen the marketing materials. We've all read the other person's agreements and websites, and we all know what we're supposed to say. And, for me, fundamentally, if you're going to launch a business and be successful, do you have the field support organization in place? You're going to work with your franchise owners, because it's not just getting them launched, it's getting them successful. And, the other thing is, as you kind of go into the due diligence process, how easy are they telling you it is to launch this business? And if they're sitting here and telling you it's super easy, you're going to make a lot of money, you don't have to work that hard, and then that just sets up all my red flags, because to open and launch a business is a lot of work. And the reason it's rewarding is because of what Sean was talking about. We're all huge advocates of entrepreneurship on this call. And so we understand the rewards of owning your own business, the success you feel from that, and then just the general overwhelming sense of you have done something that matters. So that all exists. So we're super pumped on entrepreneurship. But entrepreneurship is a lot of work, and to put all this stuff into place, don't think it's going to be easy. Don't let people convince you it's going to be easy. And if they say that, be a little skeptical.
Appreciate that. Sean, any other comments?
The one thing that I think that, maybe it's not related to your question, but kind of the topic in general, is that, the overcoming the fear of doing it, starting a business, especially if you have a job and never owned one before, because people forget, they think they immediately go to income replacement or better. Like, I make X amount, I want to make that at least or more. That's why I want to do this. But if you got a business that's doing well and cash positive, you're building an asset on top of that. So most of these business owners that start a business, and especially the service side, and they build it up, they're replenishing their income plus they're also building an asset. So, you're not necessarily going to own or operate a franchise for the rest of your life. You may want to go and do something. And I've seen people make more money and be more successful building a business and selling it and having an asset out of it. Whereas if you stay in your day job and you leave that job, there is no asset. And so that's the one thing I think a lot of people miss and they don't realize is that, and I've seen a lot of successful people do that and sell that business. And so there's always a way to exit as well. So good, and building a business. And so it's like, you're all signing a franchise agreement that's going to be 10 years. Well, the agreement's 10 years. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it. It's not a sentence. It's, it's for your protection actually. So you can always sell and do that, but you can build asset and equity. And that, I think people forget about that aspect of it, which I think is the most exciting piece of it.
Okay. So to each of you, I would love to hear the why now? Why one of Strategic's brands? Why Strategic as a whole, and why should a candidate think about it now? Chris, do you want to go first?
Sure. Really excited about where we're positioned right now. One of the things that we've really focused on Strategic, when we launched all of these brands, one of the ideas was looking at the brands and the concept of why is the product resilient, so that you can look through different economic conditions, different situations that arise in your personal life, in the client's life, and why would these businesses still be successful in those timeframes? So we focus in on businesses that have an appeal beyond a current fad or a current trend. We're looking at things like we really are active and engaged in seniors and what is life like for the senior. And those are services that don't fluctuate based on economy. They fluctuate based on what the senior is going through in their stage of life. We do the same thing with pets. It's nutrition and wellness. It's designed around what's going to make your dog healthier, live longer. All of these things, they maintain no matter what's going on in the world. And so seniors, passion for the seniors, passion for pets, passion for the home, and all of these things that kind of put you through an opportunity that really makes the business incredibly resilient during all economic conditions. The other thing is what Strategic specializes in, and one of the areas that we're very strong in, is helping people who have never been in business ownership before, have never looked at business ownership, that don't necessarily have huge capital laying around to be invested. It's for, the middle-class person who can really generate a great income opportunity and build long-term wealth, and has a startup cost that's reasonably affordable for the average American. So we offer business ownership to more people than anybody else. And our support structures are designed around folks, whether you're an experienced business person or you've never been in business for yourself at all. So all of these things we understand come with the model. And we have built support structures around that in order to help you drive your goals and objectives. So last point for strategic, and then I'll let Sean go in here, is that everything is based around the objective of what your goals are and how are you going to achieve them. And we build our support structures around you. We don't dictate to you. We just tell you what's possible.
Sean, same question to you. The why you right now?
Yeah, no, with True Blue, it's a lot of what Chris is talking about. Number one is like, we're low investment opportunity. That's what I love about home services, because the variable is execution. And because it's home investment and home services and the scalability of it, there is no cap to it. So you can grow this business. There's no real estate involved. And so the capital investment is just initial, and then it can scale and grow. Now that from our positioning as True Blue, because we're focused on helping seniors age in place, and we're that missing piece of the puzzle of aging in place. We don't do care, we take care of the home environment. We believe the home environment is so critical component to aging in place, because seniors need this help. And it's not just senior modification, it's an ongoing piece of it, because having a senior in the home, someone needs to maintain it and help with to-do list chores. And so with our subscription model business, that is a critical component. It's anybody who's in the senior care space knows that that's a big issue. And that's why we have such great national accounts with large senior care franchises. But it also works really well with busy families. And so the subscription and maintenance. And so we're really excited. Why now is because the demand is so high. Post-COVID, seniors are only going to age in place. The younger demographic is very in tune with subscription models. And I think they don't want to take care of the maintenance of their home. And the demand is there. I mean, we have so much opportunity in each one of these territories. And because of these national accounts that we're establishing, they're asking us to grow to fill this demand. And so that's, to me, it's extremely exciting business opportunity, because somebody can come in right away and do very well if they work hard at True Blue.
Well, obviously a great conversation, hopefully good insight for those that are watching at home. This is going to be the first of several discussions that we have to try to give insights back to the candidates who are thinking about franchising, and obviously those that are further down the line with strategic. For Chris and Sean, I'm Nick Powles. Thank you guys for spending the afternoon with us. Appreciate all your guys' insights. Take care.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.